Another shooting in Seattle, and the mayor of Seattle has some interesting ideas as to what is to blame for all of this and also what he thinks might help. Let's get to it in our segment, Unbelievable. Boop. Okay, so yet another shooting in Seattle. I mean, these are becoming more and more commonplace. We clearly have an issue with our violent crime crisis, and I'm going to talk about all the reasons that crime crisis exists, unlike some of our other friends in the media who seem to blatantly be ignoring it, but that is for a story coming up later on in the show. So this is an article from Como News. Or do you want to play the video first? Let's play the video first. So Como did a story about there had been a recent shooting at a community event in South Seattle, which is horrifying. You had a lot of people there who weren't involved in any sort of illicit activity. I think it was a month ago now. The shooting, 5 people were injured. It was in a Rainier Beach Safeway parking lot. So anyway, Como News caught up with Mayor Bruce Harrell in South Seattle to talk about what's happening with all this violence.
In our country, we're seeing unprecedented levels of violence and gun misuse, hatred.
He says the city seeks out organizations like faith-based groups that can help with outreach to help people in need before they resort to violence.
How do we use our health organizations, primarily funded by the state and by the county, because the city of Seattle is not a continuum of care organization. How do we partner with them to make sure people are getting treated?
Word soup. What are you going to treat them for? What are you going to treat them for? These are gang members. The vast, vast majority of these shootings that are happening in South Seattle are gang members. So what are you going to treat them for? I don't understand what he means by that. And again, you heard him revisit there his old line about, oh, this is a national problem. This is a national problem because he doesn't want to own the fact that in Seattle it's getting worse and worse. I don't care about where Seattle compares. I don't know how many times I have to say. I do not care about where Seattle's numbers of crime compare to any other freaking city or any other state in the country. We don't live there. I'm not comparing us to Chicago. I'm not comparing us to any other major city that has had crime crises forever and ever. We're supposed to be a world-class city, so I don't want to hear those comparisons. And when we have a clear rise in violent crime here and in shootings, I don't want to hear the mayor of Seattle discount it as, oh, this is a national phenomenon. But that aside, he went on to say in this article on Como News, for some reason they didn't include it in their story on the air, but they did include it in their written story. His quote is, how do we make sure we do lawful and constitutional arrests when people are threatening others? It's all coming together with how we help, we assist, we treat, and how we have to make arrests when we have to. I'm not afraid to say that a compassionate approach often will entail arrests as well. Oh, you're not afraid to say that we should arrest people who shoot other human beings? And it's some sort of epiphany that our response to that ought to include arrests? You think? Is that the brilliance that you're bringing to this issue? Help me understand. And none of this is new. This idea in this concept that we need to do what we can to prevent people from falling into a life of crime and gang violence. Of course, that's not new. People have been saying that for decades. That, hey, why are these young kids going on a life of gang violence instead of, I don't know, focusing on their education and trying to start a career? Yeah, you've been saying, you hear politicians say that. We need to give them another path. Okay, well, what are you doing? So I'm fine with Mayor Bruce Harrell being in the South End talking about, hey, what else can we offer these kids? Can they be linked up with religious organizations that can help them, foster sort of a love and respect for their fellow man and a love and respect for their community in a way that would divert them from the gang life? That's great. I have no issue with that. A+. However, the idea that you're talking about arresting people who commit acts of violence, as that's like your secondary thought, that I'm not afraid to say that a compassionate approach often will entail arrests as well. It's all about people feeling safe in this great city of Seattle. Yeah, arrests are an obvious response. And if that's what you're bringing to the table for how we're going to deal with this, I just cannot help you, Mayor. It's truly unbelievable to me that the mayor, and we're going to talk about this coming up in our next segment, because it has been a theme that I've seen, that, okay, you have some media outlets who are talking about, the crimes that are happening and what small businesses are dealing with, etc. But it's like they refuse to acknowledge or be forceful or level with people about some of the underlying issues here. Like, we have the lowest number of police officers per capita in the nation. We've vilified police officers and passed laws at the state level that take power away from police and seem to give power and deference to criminals. Like, we have no consequences on the back end when someone commits a violent crime, and we cut deals with gun offenders. Why aren't we talking about the obvious reasons why these kids continue to commit acts of violence, because we then coddle them and the criminal justice system does? And why are we treating it like some brave thing for the mayor to say, yeah, our approach should also include arrests? What are we doing? Of course it should. It's just truly unbelievable to me